Hi, I'm Mike Roberts. I'm here today representing Save the Graves. Save the Graves is a California nonprofit here in El Dorado County that does cemetery restoration. We do a number of events and activities throughout the year. Some are volunteer work days, some are just fun social events. But our flagship event is every October, and it's also called Save the Graves. And it's a theatrical event, a kind of large-scale theatrical event where skilled actors portray notable figures in local history. This year we're featuring the Blair family. We've got 11 different Blair characters we'll be presenting, and 5 of those will actually be played by their descendants. So we've got people playing their great-great-grandmother, for example. The proceeds all go to El Dorado County Cemetery Restoration. So some of the work that Save the Graves has done over the last couple of years with the funds that we've raised are headstone restoration. That's what I'm most proud of. The site of 150-year-old beautiful ornate Victorian headstones lying in pieces on the ground was difficult to take, and I convinced the county that these were threatened markers because they're laying on the ground in pieces that are light and easy to carry off. And so we got permission to start fixing them. We did 16 of them 2 years ago, and we've done a bunch of more since then. One of the really great things that's happened is volunteers have gotten interested in this work and have learned all the proper conservation grade materials and techniques, and are now doing restoration for us at no charge. Each project is approved by the county in advance, but it's really neat to see this happening in old cemeteries that haven't had any improvements done in decades. Other things we've done, we deployed about 75 section row signs and another 75 section row stencils on curbs at Placerville Union Cemetery. It's a 4.75 acre cemetery, and it previously had no indication of where the rows or sections were, and so people trying to find their loved ones would just get lost in the cemetery, and so now they can at least find their family members. We've done all sorts of smaller projects, cleanups of this and that, fence repairs, road repairs. This year, we've got 2 large projects. One is a grand entryway arch over the cemetery gates. So you'll pass through this big steel arch that the Metalworkers Union Motorcycle Club is doing for us, which is great. The other project kind of also is close to my heart. We're deploying between 30 and 50, we'll see how many we get done before October 21st, information signs in the cemetery. So these are on metal, and you've got information about whoever's buried here, or information about the cemetery, information about the headstone symbols, about Victorian culture, all sorts of cemetery-related topics. And the idea here, the reason it's close to my heart, is old cemeteries provide the connective material for growing community. We walk through a cemetery and we see people buried a long time ago, but we have very little information about them. Sometimes you can Google them and pull up a little bit of something. But skilled researchers in an archive like we're standing in now can collect a lot more information. Much of what's in these books behind me in the filing cabinets over here, that information is not on the internet. Not yet anyway. So we've done that research and created signage so that when you're walking through the cemetery and you see something interesting, maybe, hopefully, there'll be a little sign there about 2 feet off the ground that explains who this person was and what they did, why they're interesting, and a little bit about the time they lived. So in this way, I hope to create connections. Create connections between people visiting the cemetery and the people buried there, create connections between the people visiting the cemetery and the era that folks lived in. You know, what was it like here in the 1870s, for example? And the other thing that happens really often, to me at least, is I make connections to other people that are in the cemetery. I make a point of walking up to folks that are walking around the cemetery and asking them, do you have somebody buried here? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes, and they're dying to talk about them. Sometimes it's a grandmother that just passed last year, and it almost seems like therapy for these people to talk about what this person was like and what their life was. And in doing so, I've now built a connection with these visitors, and I feel good about it. It sure seems like they feel good about it. This should be a recognized role that our cemeteries will continue to have in society. It's a way for us to build connections to each other, to enhance the fabric of community, and to improve the quality of life in our hometowns. And along the way, it makes us better people. It makes us more compassionate, less judgmental, more open to the differences between us all. It sounds kind of highfalutin, but I've seen all this happen in the cemetery. I've made friends in that cemetery, and I believe it. So that's sort of what's behind our work. Thanks.